The fluorescent lights of Kansas City International Airport hummed overhead as Marcus Whitfield dragged his tired body through the terminal. 12 hours of mopping floors, emptying trash bins, and cleaning bathrooms had left the 45-year-old maintenance worker with aching joints and burning feet. All he wanted was to get home to Denise and Tyler, heat up whatever leftovers might be waiting in the fridge, and collapse into bed before his next shift started in 8 hours. As Marcus shuffled toward the employee exit, something caught his eye near the main terminal doors. A tall man in expensive clothes was struggling with an enormous pile of luggage, designer bags, equipment cases, and what looked like sports gear scattered around him like he'd lost a battle with a baggage cart. The guy was clearly frustrated, checking his phone repeatedly while trying to balance everything at once. Marcus paused, his tired muscles protesting the thought of any additional work. Every fiber of his body screamed for rest, for the sanctuary of his old Honda Civic and the promise of home. But something deeper than exhaustion kicked in, the same instinct that had been drilled into him since childhood, the voice of his late father echoing in his memory. Son, you help people when they need help. Doesn't matter who they are or what you get out of it. Without overthinking it, Marcus changed direction and walked toward the struggling traveler. "Hey there, brother," Marcus said, his voice warm despite his exhaustion. "Looks like you could use a hand with all that." The man looked up, and Marcus noticed he had kind eyes and a genuine smile that seemed relieved beyond measure. "Man, I would really appreciate that. I think I bit off more than I could chew here." Marcus didn't recognize the face. To him, this was just another traveler having a rough day. He bent down and effortlessly hoisted 2 of the heaviest bags, his years of manual labor making the weight manageable. "Where you headed? Your car?" "Yeah, it's right outside. You sure you don't mind? I know you probably just finished work." "Don't worry about it," Marcus said, already walking toward the exit. "We've all been there." Together, they loaded the bags into a sleek black SUV that probably cost more than Marcus made in 2 years. When everything was secured, the stranger pulled out his wallet, but Marcus held up his hand before any money could be offered. "Nah, man, don't need anything for that. Just pass the kindness along to someone else when you get the chance." The stranger stared at Marcus for a long moment, something unreadable crossing his expression. "What's your name?" Marcus Whitfield." "Well, Marcus, I'm Travis, and I want you to know that what you just did, that means more than you probably realize." Marcus shrugged, already backing away toward the employee parking lot. "Take care of yourself, Travis. Drive safe." As Marcus disappeared into the sea of cars, Travis Kelce stood frozen beside his SUV, watching the maintenance worker climb into a beat-up Honda with a cracked windshield and a fading paint job. Something about the entire interaction had shaken him to his core. The complete absence of recognition, the genuine kindness with no expectation of reward, the dignity of a man who had clearly been working hard all day but still stopped to help a stranger. Travis pulled out his phone, his fingers hovering over the screen as an idea began forming in his mind, an idea that would change everything. Marcus drove home through the quiet Kansas City streets, the radio playing softly as he replayed the brief encounter at the airport. There had been something different about that guy Travis, something in the way he'd looked at Marcus after the luggage was loaded, like he was seeing something Marcus couldn't understand. But Marcus pushed the thought aside. It was just another small moment of human connection in an otherwise ordinary day. "How was work, honey?" Denise asked, as Marcus walked through the front door of their modest 2-bedroom house. She was sitting at the kitchen table, paying bills under the harsh light of their single overhead fixture. At 42, Denise still had the same warm smile that had captivated Marcus 20 years ago, though worry lines had appeared around her eyes as financial pressures mounted. "Same as always," Marcus replied, kissing the top of her head. "Long day, but honest work. Helped some guy with his luggage on the way out. Nice fellow named Travis." "That's my husband," Denise said with genuine pride. "Always helping others even when you're dead tired." Tyler looked up from his homework at the dining room table, his 16-year-old frame all elbows and knees that awkward teenage way. "Dad, did you see the Chiefs game highlights? Kelce had 3 touchdowns." "Kelce?" Marcus asked, grabbing a leftover sandwich from the refrigerator. "Travis Kelce, Dad. The tight end? He's like the best player on the team." Marcus paused mid-bite, a strange feeling creeping up his spine. "Travis Kelce, you said?" "Yeah, why? You look weird." "Nothing, son. Just nothing." The next morning, Marcus arrived at the airport for another shift, the encounter with Travis still nagging at the back of his mind. He tried to focus on his work, but kept finding himself glancing toward the terminal exit, half expecting to see that familiar tall figure struggling with luggage again. "Marcus, you're one of our most reliable people," said Rosa Martinez, his supervisor, as she found him restocking cleaning supplies in the janitor's closet. Rosa was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had worked her way up from the cleaning crew to manager. "I've got some overtime opportunities this week if you're interested. We're short-staffed in Terminal B." "Absolutely," Marcus replied, without hesitation. The Whitfield family could always use the extra money, and Marcus had never been one to turn down honest work. "Whatever you need, Rosa." "That's what I like to hear. You've got integrity, Marcus. Not everyone shows up every day with the attitude you bring to this job." As Marcus worked his way through the terminal, methodically cleaning and maintaining the space that millions of travelers passed through each year, he felt a familiar sense of pride in his work. It wasn't glamorous, but it was necessary. He was keeping things running smoothly, making sure people had clean, safe spaces as they traveled to see loved ones or conduct business. There was dignity in it. The extra hours Rosa had offered meant Marcus wouldn't get home until nearly midnight. But when he calculated the overtime pay in his head, he realized they might finally be able to afford that family dinner at the restaurant Tyler had been asking about. Small victories, Marcus thought. Life was built on small victories. Chuck Henderson, Marcus's longtime colleague and friend, joined him for lunch in the employee break room. Chuck was a few years older than Marcus, with graying hair and a perpetual smile that had survived decades of custodial work. "You seem different today, Marcus," Chuck observed, unwrapping a homemade sandwich. "Something on your mind?" "Met this guy yesterday, Travis. Something about him stuck with me, you know? Like he was really paying attention when I helped him with his bags. Most people don't really see us," Chuck said matter-of-factly. "We're part of the background to them. When someone actually notices, it can feel strange." "Yeah, maybe that's it." But as Marcus returned to work, he couldn't shake the feeling that yesterday's encounter had been more significant than he understood. He'd helped thousands of travelers over the years, and none of them had left him with this lingering sense of something, possibility, maybe, or change. That evening, Marcus came home with a rare smile on his face and a pizza box in his hand. "Overtime pay came through early," he announced. "Thought we'd celebrate a little." Tyler's face lit up. "Dad, this is awesome. Can we get some of those garlic knots too?" "Already in the box, son." As the Whitfield family sat around their small dining table, sharing pizza and stories from their day, Marcus felt a deep contentment. This was what mattered, not the size of their house or the age of their car, but these moments of simple togetherness. He'd worked hard for this meal, this evening, this life, and that work had value. But contentment, Marcus had learned, was often temporary. 3 days later, Denise met him at the door with an envelope in her hands and worry etched across her features. "This came today," she said quietly, handing him what was clearly a medical bill. Marcus opened the envelope and felt his stomach drop. Tyler's recent medical tests, routine procedures that their insurance had promised to cover, had generated a bill for $3,000. The insurance company had found reasons to deny coverage, leaving the Whitfield family responsible for an amount that might as well have been $30,000 for all their ability to pay it. "How is this possible?" Marcus asked, reading through the itemized charges. "They said it was covered." "I called them," Denise said, her voice tight with stress. "They said the tests were exploratory and not medically necessary, according to their guideline. They want payment within 30 days. Marcus sank into his favorite chair, a worn recliner they'd bought second-hand 10 years ago, and stared at the bill. Even with the overtime hours, even with his perfect attendance and dedication, it would take months of extra work to pay this off. Months of no family dinners, no small celebration, no financial breathing room whatsoever. "We'll figure it out," he said, though he wasn't sure how. "I'll pick up more shifts, maybe find some weekend work." Tyler appeared in the doorway, clearly having overheard the conversation. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't know the tests would cost so much." "Son, this is not your fault," Marcus said firmly. "Taking care of your health is my job. That's what fathers do." "Oh." But as Tyler disappeared back to his room and Denise began calculating numbers on a piece of paper, Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a heavy coat. He was a good worker, a dedicated employee, a loving father and husband, But sometimes good wasn't enough. Sometimes the math just didn't work out, no matter how hard you tried or how much integrity you brought to the job. Outside their window, the Kansas City night stretched endless, full of people living lives Marcus could only imagine. Lives where $3,000 was an inconvenience rather than a crisis. But this was his life, and he would find a way to make it work. He always did. Marcus threw himself into work with renewed desperation, accepting every overtime shift Rosa offered and volunteering for the least desirable assignment. Weekend shifts, holiday coverage, the graveyard hours that left him stumbling through his days in a fog of exhaustion. He took it all. Denise watched her husband disappear into his work, coming home later and later, falling asleep at the dinner table when he managed to make it home for meals at all. "You're killing yourself," she said one evening, as Marcus mechanically ate reheated pasta at 11:30 at night. "There has to be another way." "I'm fine," Marcus insisted, though the dark circles under his eyes told a different story. "Just need to catch up on this bill, then things will settle down." Chuck Henderson noticed the change too. "Marcus, when's the last time you took a day off? And I mean a real day off, not just switching shifts around." "Can't afford days off right now," Marcus replied, pushing his mop bucket down the terminal corridor with perhaps more force than necessary. "Got responsibilities." "We all got responsibilities, brother. But running yourself into the ground isn't going to help your family if you collapse." Marcus wanted to argue, but he knew Chuck was right. His back ached constantly now, and he'd started having headaches that aspirin couldn't touch. Still, what choice did he have? The medical bill sat on their kitchen table like a monument to his inadequacy as a provider, reminding him daily that his best efforts weren't enough. A small breakthrough came when Chuck approached him with an opportunity. "My cousin runs a commercial cleaning company. He's got a contract to clean some office buildings downtown on weekends. It's not much, but it's extra money if you're interested." "How much extra?" Marcus asked immediately. "Couple hundred a weekend, split between the two of us. It's hard work. We're talking 6 to 8 hours each day, but it's honest money." Marcus didn't hesitate. "I'm in." That Saturday, Marcus and Chuck spent 8 hours cleaning corporate offices in downtown Kansas City. The work was similar to what Marcus did at the airport, but somehow more depressing. Empty cubicles where people spent their days in jobs that probably paid more in a month than Marcus made in 3. He tried not to think about the irony of cleaning the workspaces of people who would never notice he disappeared tomorrow. But the extra money felt like a lifeline. For the first time in weeks, Marcus went home with a sense of progress. If he could keep this up for a few months, they might actually pay off Tyler's medical bill without falling behind on other necessities. The victory was short-lived. Monday morning, Marcus woke up feeling like he'd been hit by a truck. His throat was raw, his head pounded, and every muscle in his body ached. Denise took one look at him and shook her head. "You're not going to work today," she said firmly. "I have to," Marcus croaked. "Can't afford to miss shifts." "You can't afford to work yourself to death either. Look at yourself, Marcus. When's the last time you got a full night's sleep?" Marcus tried to argue, but his body made the decision for him. He spent the next 3 days in bed with what the doctor called exhaustion-induced flu, essentially his immune system shutting down from overwork and stress. The missed shift meant lost income at exactly the wrong time, erasing most of the progress he'd made with the weekend cleaning job. On Thursday evening, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with a calculator, a pile of bills, and a growing sense of defeat. No matter how he ran the numbers, they didn't add up. Even working every available hour, even sacrificing his health and time with his family, he was falling short. "Maybe I should look for a second job," he muttered, more to himself than to Denise. "Something with better pay." "With what time?" Denise asked gently. "You're already working 16-hour days when you're healthy. And what about your benefits at the airport? We can't afford to lose those." She was right, of course. Marcus's job at the airport wasn't just about the paycheck. It provided their health insurance, modest as it was. Starting over somewhere else would mean losing coverage exactly when Tyler might need more medical care. "I don't know what else to do," Marcus admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I work as hard as I can. I do everything right, but it's never enough. What kind of father can't even pay his son's medical bills?" Denise moved behind his chair and wrapped her arms around his shoulder. "You're a good father, Marcus Whitfield. You're a good man. This isn't about what you're worth as a person. Sometimes it feels like it is." Tyler appeared in the doorway, still in his pajamas. "Dad, I heard you talking. Is everything going to be okay? Marcus forced a smile. Of course, son. We're just figuring some things out. Nothing for you to worry about. But Tyler was 16, old enough to read the stress in his parents' faces and understand the gravity of whispered conversations about money. Maybe I should get a job, help out. No, Marcus said firmly. Your job is school. My job is taking care of this family. I'll figure it out. After Tyler went back to his room, Marcus stared at the bills spread across the table. Outside their window, he could see their neighbor Carol Brennan watering her garden in the fading evening light. Carol was a retired teacher who had always been kind to the Whitfield family, bringing Tyler books from her personal library and occasionally sharing vegetables from her garden. She'd noticed Marcus's increasingly haggard appearance and had asked Denise if everything was all right. He's working himself to death, Denise had confided, but he's too proud to accept help and too scared to admit we're in over our heads. Carol had offered to lend them money, but Denise knew Marcus would never accept it. He'd been raised to believe that a man provided for his family through his own effort, and accepting charity, even from well-meaning neighbors, felt like admitting failure. As Marcus watched Carol tend to her garden with the unhurried confidence of someone whose basic needs were secure, he felt a profound sense of isolation. The world was full of people who went to bed each night without worrying about medical bills or overtime shift, or whether their hard work would ever be enough. He wasn't asking for luxury or excess, just the basic security of knowing his family was okay. We'll get through this, Denise said, though her voice carried less certainty than her words. Yeah, Marcus agreed, closing the calculator and gathering up the bills. We always do. But as he prepared for another night of restless sleep, followed by another punishing day of work, Marcus wondered how many times a person could say, "We'll get through this," before the words lost all meaning. How many small crises could a family weather before one of them finally broke them? He didn't know the answer, and that uncertainty followed him into uneasy dreams filled with medical bills and time clocks and the endless corridors of Kansas City International Airport. Travis Kelce hadn't been able to stop thinking about Marcus Whitfield. In the weeks since their encounter at the airport, the image of the maintenance worker's genuine kindness had replayed in his mind dozens of times. It wasn't just the help with the luggage, it was the complete absence of expectation, the refusal of any reward, and especially the way Marcus had looked at him, not as a celebrity or a source of potential benefit, but simply as another human being who needed assistance. "You're distracted," his agent noted during a meeting about upcoming endorsement deals. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just thinking about something," Travis replied, though he wasn't sure how to explain what was occupying his thoughts. How do you tell people that a 5-minute interaction with a stranger had somehow shifted your entire perspective on what mattered? Travis had grown up in a family that emphasized helping others, but success and fame had gradually insulated him from the kind of authentic human connections that didn't involve camera or contract. Marcus's kindness had reminded him of something essential he'd been missing: the simple power of one person helping another without any agenda. Using his connections in Kansas City, Travis made some discreet inquiries about the airport's maintenance staff. It didn't take long to learn about Marcus Whitfield's reputation among his colleagues and supervisors. Every person Travis spoke with said the same thing. Marcus was reliable, hardworking, and genuinely cared about doing his job well. He'd been with the airport for over a decade, never missed shift unless absolutely necessary, and was known for helping newer employees learn the rope. "He's the kind of guy who makes everyone around him better," Rosa Martinez had told Travis when he'd called the airport, claiming to be considering Marcus for a private cleaning contract. "If you're looking for someone with integrity, you won't find better than Marcus Whitfield." What Travis learned next made him even more determined to act. Through careful questioning, he discovered that Marcus was working overtime constantly, had recently taken on weekend jobs, and was clearly struggling financially. The contrast between Marcus's character and his circumstances struck Travis as fundamentally unfair. Here was a man doing everything right, working hard, helping others, maintaining his dignity and value, and still barely staying afloat. Travis had seen plenty of wealth and privilege in his world, much of it enjoyed by people who had done far less to earn it than Marcus Whitfield did every single day. The randomness of it bothered him deeply. Marcus's kindness at the airport hadn't been calculated or performed for an audience. It had been instinctive, the natural expression of someone who genuinely cared about other people. "I want to do something for this guy," Travis told his business manager during a call. "Something meaningful." "Charity work is great for your image," his manager replied. "We could set up a photo op. Maybe make it part of your community outreach initiative." "No," Travis said firmly. "This isn't about my image. This is about doing the right thing for someone who deserves it." Travis's first instinct was to simply write Marcus a check, but he quickly realized that approach would likely backfire. From everything he'd learned about Marcus, the man had too much pride to accept what he'd perceived charity. Travis needed to find a way to help that preserved Marcus's dignity while providing real assistance. The solution came to him while reviewing his own financial investment. Travis owned several businesses around Kansas City, including a small facilities management company that contracted services to various corporate clients. What if Marcus could earn the money he needed through legitimate work opportunities that Travis could facilitate behind the scenes? Travis spent 2 days crafting a plan. He would create a real job opportunity, not busy work or artificial charity, but genuine employment that matched Marcus's skills and paid significantly better than his current position. Marcus would earn every dollar through his own effort, maintaining his pride and dignity while improving his family's financial situation. The challenge was presenting the opportunity in a way that seemed natural rather than suspicious. Travis decided on a direct approach. On Friday afternoon, he drove to Kansas City International Airport and waited in the terminal until he spotted Marcus finishing his shift. The maintenance worker looked even more tired than he had the week before, and Travis felt a pang of guilt knowing that his own comfortable life existed alongside Marcus's daily struggle for financial survival. "Marcus?" Travis called out as the maintenance worker headed toward the employee exit. Marcus turned, and Travis saw recognition dawn in his eyes. "Travis, what are you doing here?" "I was hoping to run into you, actually. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" Marcus glanced at his watch, an old digital model that had probably been a bargain purchase years ago. "I guess so. Is everything okay?" "More than okay. I have a business proposition for you." They found a quiet corner of the terminal, and Travis explained that he owned a facilities management company that was expanding its operation. He needed someone to oversee maintenance and cleaning operations at several downtown office buildings, and based on their brief interaction, he thought Marcus might be perfect for the role. "The pay would be significantly better than what you're making here," Travis said, trying to sound casual. "And it would be Monday through Friday, regular hours. No more overtime unless you wanted it." Marcus listened carefully, his expression cycling through surprise, suspicion, and cautious hope. "Travis, I appreciate the offer, but I have to ask, is this because you feel sorry for me? Because if it is, I can't accept." "It's not pity," Travis said honest. "It's recognition. I've done some checking around, and everyone says the same thing about you. You're reliable, hardworking, and honest. Those are exactly the qualities I need in someone to run operations for my company. But you barely know me. We met once for like 5 minutes. Travis smiled. "Sometimes 5 minutes is enough to see who someone really is. The way you helped me with my luggage, no questions asked, no expectation of reward, that told me everything I needed to know about your character." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, clearly wrestling with internal conflict. Travis could see the desire for financial security warring with suspicion about motive and concern about accepting what might be charity in disguise. "I need to think about it," Marcus finally said, "and I'd want to talk to my wife." "Of course, take your time." Travis handed Marcus a business card with his personal cell phone number. "Call me when you're ready, and we can discuss details. But Marcus, I want you to know, this isn't a favor. If you take this job, it's because you've earned it." As Travis walked away, he felt the same sense of rightness he experienced when making a perfect catch in the end zone. Some opportunities were gifts you gave yourself by recognizing and helping. Marcus felt like the most important play he'd made all season. Marcus stood in the terminal holding Travis's business card, his mind racing with possibilities and concern. The offer seemed too good to be true, which in his experience usually meant it was, but something in Travis's voice had sounded genuine, and the job description matched Marcus's skills perfectly. For the first time in weeks, Marcus allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, things were about to change for the better. Marcus drove home in a daze, Travis's business card burning a hole in his shirt pocket. The offer seemed like a dream, better pay, regular hours, respect for his skills and experience. But years of financial struggle had taught him to be suspicious of opportunities that appeared too convenient. Nothing in life came easily for people like him, and windfall offers usually had hidden costs. "How was work?" Denise asked as he walked through the front door, but she stopped mid-sentence when she saw his expression. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." Marcus pulled out the business card and explained his encounter with Travis, watching Denise's face cycle through the same emotions he'd experienced: surprise, hope, skepticism, and cautious excitement. "Travis Kelce wants to hire you," she said, reading the card for the third time. "The Travis Kelce? I know it sounds crazy. That's why I'm not sure what to think." Tyler looked up from his homework when he overheard the conversation. "Dad, Travis Kelce offered you a job. That's incredible. He's like one of the most famous athletes in the country." "That's exactly what worries me," Marcus said, sinking into his recliner. "Why would someone like that care about helping someone like me? There has to be a catch." Denise sat on the arm of his chair. "Maybe there doesn't have to be a catch. Maybe he's just a good person who recognized another good person. People like us don't get breaks like this, Denise. We work hard, we do our best, but we don't get discovered by millionaire athletes who want to change our lives. That happens in movies, not in real life." But even as Marcus voiced his skepticism, he couldn't shake the memory of his interaction with Travis at the airport. There had been something genuine about the man's reaction to Marcus's help, something that went beyond polite gratitude. And Travis had seemed sincere when he explained his offer, not condescending or pitying, but respectful. "What if it is real?" Denise asked quietly. "What if this is exactly what we've been praying for?" Marcus thought about the medical bills, the overtime shifts that were wearing him down, the constant stress of never having enough money to feel secure. The job Travis described would solve their immediate problems and give them the kind of financial stability they'd never experienced. But accepting it felt like admitting he couldn't provide for his family through his own efforts. "I was raised to believe that a man takes care of his family through his own work," Marcus said. "My father worked 2 jobs his entire life and never asked anyone for help. He'd be ashamed if he knew I was even considering." "Your father would be proud of how hard you work," Denise replied. "And he'd want you to make the best decision for your family, not just your pride." Marcus spent the weekend wrestling with his conscience. On Saturday, while working the cleaning job with Chuck, he found himself distracted and uncertain. "You're somewhere else today," Chuck observed as they emptied trash bins in a corporate boardroom. "Everything all right?" Marcus explained the situation, grateful for Chuck's practical perspective on workplace dynamic. "Let me get this straight," Chuck said. "A successful businessman wants to hire you for a better position because he was impressed with your work ethic and character. And you're worried about why? Because it seems too good to be true. Because I don't want charity." "Marcus, opportunity isn't charity. If this Travis guy was going to give you money for nothing, that would be charity. But he's offering you a job where you'll earn every penny. What's wrong with that?" "I just keep thinking there must be some angle I'm not seeing." Chuck stopped working and looked at Marcus serious. "You know what your problem is? You've been struggling for so long that you've forgotten good things can happen to good people. You've earned this opportunity through 15 years of showing up, working hard, and treating people right. Maybe it's time to let yourself have something good." Sunday evening, Marcus made his decision. He called the number on Travis's card, his heart pounding as the phone rang. "Marcus, I was hoping you'd call," Travis said, his voice warm and welcoming. "Have you had a chance to think about the opportunity?" "I have, and I'm interested," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "But I need to ask you something directly, and I hope you'll give me an honest answer." "Of course. Why me? You could hire anyone for this job. People with more experience, better connection, college degrees. Why offer it to someone you met once in an airport?" Travis was quiet for a moment, and Marcus respected him for taking the question seriously rather than offering a quick, superficial answer. "Because character's harder to find than experience," Travis finally said. "Because I've met plenty of people with impressive resumes who I wouldn't trust to watch my dog for a weekend. And because when I saw you help me with those bags, asking for nothing in return, it reminded me of what my parents taught me about how people should treat each other. I still don't understand why that makes me qualified to run operations for your company. Marcus, do you know what the biggest challenge is in managing people? It's finding someone who genuinely cares about doing the job right, who takes pride in their work, even when no one's watching. You've been doing that for 15 years. Everything else can be taught, but integrity can't be learned. Marcus felt something shift inside him as Travis spoke. The offer wasn't about pity or charity. It was about recognition. Travis had seen something in Marcus that Marcus sometimes struggled to see in himself, that his values and work ethic had genuine worth in the world beyond just keeping his family afloat. "When would you want me to start?" Marcus asked. "Is 2 weeks enough notice to give at the airport? I want you to leave on good terms with Rosa and your colleague." The consideration in that request, making sure Marcus maintained his professional relationships rather than burning bridges, convinced him that Travis's motivations were genuinely respectful rather than exploitative. 2 weeks is perfect," Marcus said. "And Travis, thank you for seeing something in me that I'm not sure I always see in myself." "Thank you for reminding me what really matters," Travis replied. "I have a feeling this is going to work out well for both of us." After hanging up, Marcus sat in his kitchen feeling lighter than he had in months. Denise and Tyler watched him expectantly, reading the answer in his expression before he said a word. "I took the job," he said simply. Tyler let out a whoop of excitement, and Denise wrapped her arms around Marcus with tears in her eyes. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, "for working so hard for so long, and for being brave enough to accept something good when it came along." Marcus held his family close, thinking about how dramatically their lives were about to change. For the first time in years, the future felt full of possibility, rather than just more of the same struggle. And it had all started with a simple act of kindness in an airport, proof that sometimes the smallest gestures could have the biggest consequence. Marcus's final 2 weeks at the airport passed in a blur of mixed emotion. Rosa Martinez expressed genuine happiness about his new opportunity, while lamenting the loss of one of her most dependable employees. His colleagues threw him a small farewell party in the break room, and Chuck presented him with a card signed by the entire maintenance crew. "Don't forget about us little people when you're running that fancy company," Chuck joked, though his eyes showed real pride in his friend's success. "Never," Marcus promised. "And Chuck, when Travis's company needs additional contracted services, I'll make sure they know who to call." On his last day, Marcus walked through the terminal one final time, seeing the familiar space with new eyes. This place had been his second home for 15 years, where he'd learned the dignity of honest work and built friendships that would last a lifetime. Leaving felt bittersweet, but he was ready for whatever came next. Travis had arranged for Marcus to spend his first week learning about the company's operation and meeting the teams he'd be supervising. The facilities management business was larger and more sophisticated than Marcus had expected, with contracts covering dozens of buildings throughout Kansas City. Travis introduced him to everyone as our new operations manager, with a level of respect that made Marcus stand a little taller. "Your experience at the airport is actually perfect preparation for this role," explained Jennifer Walsh, the company's general manager. "You understand large-scale maintenance operation. You know how to manage multiple priorities. And most importantly, you understand that our work directly impacts other people's ability to do their jobs well." Marcus threw himself into learning the business with the same dedication he'd brought to every job he'd ever held. He studied operational procedure, learned the computer systems, and spent time with each maintenance crew to understand their challenges and successes. What impressed him most was the company culture Travis had created, one that valued both efficiency and treating employees with dignity. "The secret to good facilities management," Travis explained during one of their weekly check-ins, "is remembering that behind every clean office and functioning building, there are real people doing important work. Our job is to make their jobs easier, not just complete tasks on a checklist." The philosophy resonated deeply with Marcus, who had spent years feeling invisible to the people whose workspaces he maintained. Here, he was encouraged to build relationships with clients, to understand their needs, and to take pride in solving problems creatively. 6 months into his new role, Marcus had transformed several underperforming accounts and earned recognition from clients for his attention to detail and responsiveness. His teams respected him because he understood their work from the ground up and never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. The financial stability his new salary provided had allowed the Whitfield family to pay off Tyler's medical bills, build a small emergency fund, and even plan a family vacation the first time in years. But the most significant change was in Marcus himself. The constant stress that had weighed on him for years had lifted, replaced by confidence and genuine enthusiasm for his work. He discovered he had a talent for leadership and problem-solving that had never been fully utilized in his previous position. "You look different," Denise observed one evening as they sat on their back porch, watching Tyler practice basketball in the driveway. "Happier, more like the man I married 20 years ago." "I feel different," Marcus admitted. "I didn't realize how much the financial stress was affecting everything until it was gone. But it's more than just the money. It's feeling valued for what I bring to the job, not just appreciated for showing up and working hard." One evening in late spring, Travis stopped by the office after hours and found Marcus still working, reviewing maintenance schedules for the following week. It had become a familiar sight. Marcus approaching his new role with the same conscientiousness he'd shown at the airport, but now with the authority and resources to make meaningful improvement. "You know you don't have to work 16-hour days anymore," Travis said with a smile. "That was kind of the point of getting you out of that situation." Marcus looked up from his computer screen, slightly embarrassed. "Old habits, I guess. But I'm not working out of desperation anymore. I'm working because I genuinely enjoy what I'm doing. There's a difference. I can see that. The client satisfaction reports speak for themselves. You've exceeded every performance metric we set." "I had good training," Marcus replied. 15 years of learning that details matter and that treating people right makes everything else easier." Travis pulled up a chair, settling in for one of their conversations that had become a highlight of both men's. Over the months, their professional relationship had evolved into genuine friendship, built on mutual respect and shared values about work and family. "Can I ask you something?" Travis said. "Do you ever think about that day at the airport when you helped me with the luggage?" Marcus laughed. "All the time, especially when I'm trying to explain to people how all this happened. It sounds like something out of a movie when I tell the story. What part seems most unbelievable to you?" "Honestly, that someone like you would care enough about a 5-minute interaction to change someone's life over it. Most people forget acts of kindness as soon as they happen. You turned one into something that affected my entire family." Travis considered this, thinking about how many small interactions he'd had over the years that he'd forgotten completely. "I think it was because your kindness was so genuine. You didn't know who I was. You didn't want anything from me. You helped anyway. In my world, that's rarer than you might think. In my world, it's just what you do when someone needs help." "Exactly. And that difference in perspective is why I knew you would be successful in this role. You understand that work is ultimately about serving other people, not just completing tasks." The conversation was interrupted by Marcus's phone buzzing with a text from Tyler. "Dad, got into the honor roll again. Mom's making your favorite dinner to celebrate." Marcus smiled as he read the message aloud. Tyler's been thriving since the stress lifted at home. His grades improved, he joined the basketball team, and he's talking about college now like it's actually possible instead of just a dream. "That's what success really looks like," Travis said. "Not the size of your paycheck or your title, but the opportunities you can create for the people you love." 6 months later, Marcus stood before a room full of Kansas City business leaders accepting an award for innovative facilities management. Travis watched from the audience as Marcus delivered his acceptance speech with the same genuine humility he'd shown that day at the airport. "This recognition belongs to my entire team," Marcus said into the microphone. "Success in our industry isn't about individual achievement. It's about people working together to create environment where others can do their best work. I'm honored to represent the hundreds of maintenance professionals who keep this city running every day." After the ceremony, Travis approached Marcus in the reception area. "Great speech. You've come a long way from that day when you insisted you didn't deserve recognition. I've learned that deserving something and accepting it gracefully are two different skills," Marcus replied, "and that sometimes the best way to honor an opportunity is to use it to create opportunities for others." Marcus had indeed used his position to create opportunities for others. He'd hired several former colleagues from the airport, promoted team members based on merit rather than seniority, and established training programs that helped entry-level workers develop supervisory skill. His division had become known throughout the company for its low turnover and high employee satisfaction. "I've been thinking about expanding the business," Travis, "opening a second location, maybe in St. Louis or Denver. Would you be interested in heading up that expansion?" Marcus felt the familiar flutter of excitement he'd learned to associate with new challenges. I'd be honored to consider it, but I want to make sure we're doing it for the right reason, because we can genuinely serve clients better, not just because we want to grow. Spoken like a true leader, Travis said. Take your time thinking about it. Talk it over with Denise and Tyler. As the evening wound down and Marcus prepared to head home to his family, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. The scared, exhausted man who had helped a stranger with luggage 18 months ago felt like a different person. Not because his fundamental character had changed, but because he'd finally been given the opportunity to show what he was truly capable of achieving. The drive home took Marcus through the same neighborhoods he'd traveled for years, but everything looked different now. The modest houses seemed cozy rather than cramped. The aging strip malls looked like communities rather than symbols of limitation. His perspective had shifted, not because his circumstances had improved, but because he'd learned to see possibility where he'd once seen only struggle. At home, Denise and Tyler were waiting to hear about the awards ceremony. As Marcus recounted the evening's events, he realized that the greatest victory wasn't the recognition or the career advancement. It was this moment, sitting at his kitchen table with his family, sharing success that they had all earned together through years of perseverance and love. "Dad," Tyler said as they prepared for bed, "I'm proud of you, not just for the award, but for showing me that good things happen to good people if you work hard and treat others right." "Son," Marcus replied, "the most important thing I've learned is that kindness always matters, even when you can't see how. Sometimes, especially when you can't see how." Later that night, as Marcus and Denise talked about the possibility of expanding to other cities, he thought about Travis's observation that character was harder to find than experience. The airport maintenance worker who had helped a stranger with luggage hadn't disappeared. He'd simply finally found a place where his character could flourish alongside his skills. "What are you thinking about?" Denise asked, noticing his distant expression. "Just grateful," Marcus said simply. "Grateful that someone saw who I really was and gave me the chance to become who I was meant to be." The next morning, Marcus would return to work and continue building something meaningful with his team. Tyler would go to school with dreams of college that now seemed attainable rather than impossible. Denise would plan their family vacation without worrying about the cost. And somewhere in Kansas City, Travis Kelce would wake up knowing that sometimes the most important plays happen off the field, in the quiet moments when one person chooses to see the best in another.